The Andromeda Diplomatic Institute floated in the darkness between stars like a giant crystal. Its walls were made of clear metal that showed the endless space outside. Inside, young beings from all across the galaxy walked through bright hallways, talking in dozens of different languages. Moved through these hallways like he owned them. He stood 7 feet tall, with dark blue skin that looked like armor. 4 powerful arms swung at his sides as he walked. His people, were known throughout the galaxy as the best fighters. They came from a world where everything tried to kill you, and only the strongest survived. Other students moved out of his way without thinking about it. A small group of fuzzy students pressed against the wall as he passed. 3 tall, thin stopped their conversation and watched him with their large black eyes. Even the proud nobles with their golden skin and perfect features gave him space. Smiled, showing sharp white teeth. This was how things should be. The strong led and the weak followed. It was the natural order of the universe. He reached the combat theory classroom and took his usual seat in the front row. His 3 friends sat around him. On, who was almost as big as but not quite as fast, who was smaller but twice as mean, and who could break steel bars with his bare hands. "Did you see the new student list?" asked, looking at his data pad. "We have another human joining today." A human laughed. "What is this, a zoo?" The others laughed too. Everyone knew about humans. They came from Sol 3, a world so dangerous that most species could not even land on it without dying. The planet had too much gravity, poisonous air in some places, deadly weather, and creatures that could kill you in hundreds of different ways. But the humans themselves, they were a joke. Small, weak, slow, with soft pink skin and no natural weapons. They had no claws, no fangs, no armor, no poison. They could not even see in the dark or run very fast. How they had survived on their death world was a mystery that made scientists across the galaxy scratch their heads. "Maybe they will put it in a cage for us to study," said. "Or maybe it will run away when it sees us," On added. The door opened and Professor walked in. She was a tall and green with 6 arms and eyes that could see heat. Behind her walked a human girl. The girl looked so ordinary that it was almost funny. She was maybe 5.5 feet tall, with brown hair tied back and dark eyes. Her skin was pale, and she looked like a strong wind might blow her over. She wore the standard academy uniform, but on her small frame, it looked like clothes borrowed from an older sibling. "Class, this is Tara from Sol 3, Professor said. "Please make her feel welcome." Tara nodded to the class but did not smile. She found an empty seat near the back, next to a quiet student who had silver skin and moved like liquid. Turned to look at her and their eyes met for just a moment. He expected to see fear or at least nervousness. Instead, Tara looked at him the way someone might look at an interesting rock. Calm, studying. Then she looked away and opened her notebook. "Today we will discuss the fighting styles of different species," Professor began. She pressed a button and images appeared on the wall. Each species has evolved different ways to survive and fight. She showed pictures of in combat, their 4 arms moving like a deadly dance. The class watched, people tear through enemy lines with speed and power that made other species look like they were moving through thick mud. "They are perhaps the finest natural warriors in the galaxy," the professor said. "Fast, strong, with multiple limbs for both attack and defense. They come from a high-gravity world where only the strongest survive." Sat up, this was what he wanted to hear. The professor showed other species. The insect-like who fought in perfect groups and never retreated. The massive who could crush steel with their fists. The flying who attacked from the sky with razor-sharp wings. Then she showed humans. The image was of human soldiers, but they looked nothing like the girl sitting in the back of the room. These humans were covered in artificial armor and carried weapons that shot energy bolts. Without their tools, they looked tiny and weak. "Humans," the professor said, "are perhaps the most unusual warriors in the galaxy. They have no natural weapons, no armor, no special abilities. They are not particularly fast or strong compared to most species. Several students chuckled, grinned. However, the professor continued, they have one ability that makes them unique. They are persistence hunters. On their home world, they would chase prey for days, even weeks, until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. Days, whispered, what kind of fighting is that? They would simply follow their prey and never stop, the professor explained. The prey would run until it could run no more. Then the humans would catch it. Could not help himself. He turned around and spoke loud enough for the whole class to hear. What kind of warrior wins by walking? The class erupted in laughter. Even some of the normally serious smiled. Only the human girl did not react. She just sat there, writing notes in her book. It is an interesting strategy, the professor said, trying to restore order. Interesting? Stood up, all four arms spread wide. It sounds like what prey animals do when they cannot fight, run until something stronger catches them. More laughter. The human girl still did not look up. Felt a strange disappointment. He had expected some reaction. Anger, fear, embarrassment, something. But Tara just kept writing in her notebook as if nothing had happened. Class ended and students began filing out. Walked past Tara's desk, making sure his shadow fell over her work. Welcome to the academy, he said, his voice carrying a threat that every student understood. Tara looked up at him. Her heart was beating steadily, slowly, 42 beats per minute, the heart rate of someone completely at rest. Thank you, she said simply, and went back to her notes. Walked away, but something bothered him. Most students, when he threatened them, showed fear. Their hearts beat faster, their breathing changed, their body language screamed submission. The human girl had not changed at all. That night in his dorm room, looked out at the stars and wondered why that bothered him so much. She was just a weak human from a death world. What could she possibly do to him? He would find out soon enough. 3 weeks passed and found himself watching the human girl more than he cared to admit. Tara moved through the academy like she was invisible. She attended all her classes, ate her meals alone, and never caused trouble. But she also never backed down from anyone. The cafeteria was where most students showed their place in the social order. Strong species sat at the best tables near the windows. Weaker species found corners and quiet spots. But Tara sat wherever she wanted, usually alone, reading while she ate. Look at it, said one day, pointing at Tara with one of his 4 hands. Sitting there like it belongs here. Humans do not belong anywhere except their death world, On agreed. My father fought in the border wars. He said humans only won because they had better weapons, not because they could actually fight. Watched Tara turn a page in her book. She was reading something called The Art of War by someone named Sun. The text was in the old human language that scholars used. She cannot even understand that most of the galaxy sees her species as a curiosity, said. They should be grateful we let them into civilized space at all. That afternoon in physical combat class, instructor made all the students practice basic fighting moves. Was an old warrior who had scars across all 4 of his arms and a missing eye from real battles. Pair up, he commanded. Work on defensive postures. Immediately moved toward Tara, but she had already partnered with Lyra, the quiet girl who sat next to her in most classes. Were peaceful by nature, with silver skin that changed color based on their emotions. Found himself paired with a named instead. The golden-skinned noble was skilled but predictable, easily knocked him down 3 times in a row. Across the practice mat, he watched Tara and Lyra work together. There was trying to show Tara some basic blocks, but the human girl moved differently than expected. Where other students were rigid and formal, Tara flowed like water. She never met force with force, instead redirecting and moving away. Instructor called out, "Come here." Tara walked over, and the entire class stopped to watch. "Show me a defensive stance," the instructor ordered. Tara stood with her feet shoulder-width apart, knees slightly bent, hands relaxed at her sides. To most of the class, she looked like she was not even trying to defend herself. "Is that supposed to be fighting?" laughed. "She looks like she is waiting for someone to bring her lunch." Frowned, "Attack her, slow speed pulling your punches." Grinned and moved forward with one arm extended in a simple strike. Tara stepped aside so smoothly that almost lost his balance. He tried again, this time with two arms. Tara ducked under one and guided the other past her with a gentle touch. "Faster," Zed. Increased his speed, using three arms in a combination that would overwhelm most opponents. Tara moved like she was dancing, each movement flowing into the next. She never struck back, never tried to hurt, but somehow he could never touch her. After 2 minutes, was breathing hard and frustrated. Tara looked like she had been out for a casual walk. "Enough," the instructor said. "Interesting style, very different." That evening in the dormitory common room, the incident became the main topic of conversation. Species that normally did not talk to each other were all discussing the strange human girl who moved like smoke. It was not real fighting, announced to anyone who would listen. She was just running away with extra steps. In a real fight with real speed and real power, she would last 5 seconds. A small crowd had gathered around him, including students from 6 different species. Everyone wanted to hear about the human girl who had somehow embarrassed an in-combat class. "My species has been fighting for 10,000 years, continued. "We have conquered 12 worlds and never lost a single war. What has her species done? Sat on one poisonous rock and barely survived." "But she did avoid all of attacks," pointed out Lyra, the girl. Her silver skin had turned a nervous blue color. "Rounded on her with all 4 arms spread wide. Was holding back enough to fight a child. In real combat, we move too fast for eyes to follow. We strike with the force of industrial machines. No soft-skinned human could survive it for even a moment." "Then why do human worlds have such strong defenses?" asked a quiet voice. Everyone turned. Tara had entered the common room and was standing near the door, holding a cup of tea. How long had she been listening? "Because," said, turning to face her directly, "your people are cowards who hide behind walls and weapons instead of fighting with honor." The room went completely silent. Even the background noise of the air circulation system seemed too loud. Tara walked across the room and sat down in an empty chair. She set her tea on the small table and looked at with those same calm, studying eyes. "You think courage means rushing forward with 4 arms swinging," she said. Her voice was quiet, but everyone could hear it perfectly. "Where I come from, courage means something different." "And what is that supposed to mean?" demanded. "It means we do not pick fights with people smaller than us to make ourselves feel strong," Tara replied. She picked up her tea and took a small sip. The watching students exchanged glances. No one had ever spoken to like that before. Several in the room tensed up, ready for their champion to respond with violence. But found himself frozen. Not with fear, he had never felt fear in his life, but with something else. The human girl was not afraid of him, at all. She looked at his 7 feet of armored muscle and 4 powerful arms like they were no more threatening than furniture. "You want to know about human fighting," Tara continued. "We spent 2 million years on a world where everything was bigger, stronger, and faster than us. Every predator could kill us easily. Every disease could wipe us out. Every natural disaster could end our entire species." She stood up, still holding her tea. "But we are still here, and most of those predators are not." Tara walked toward the door, then stopped and looked back at. "The thing about persistence hunting is that it does not matter how fast the prey runs or how strong it is. In the end, we are always still walking, and it is always lying on the ground." She left the common room, and for several long moments nobody spoke. finally broke the silence. She thinks she is so clever with her words. Words do not win fights. But was not listening. He was thinking about the way Tara had looked at him, like she knew something he did not. Like she was measuring him for something. Late that night, stared out his window at the stars and felt something he had never experienced before. For the first time in his life, he was not completely certain he would win a fight. The thought should have worried him. Instead, it excited him. Tomorrow, he decided, he would find out what the human girl was really made of. The military history classroom was packed with students from all across the galaxy. Professor Ra, an ancient ethereal with glowing blue skin and knowledge that spanned centuries, was teaching about the greatest warriors in galactic history. Today we discuss the legends, she said in her voice that sounded like distant music. Those fighters whose names are still spoken with respect across 1,000 worlds. Sat in his usual front seat, but for once he was not completely focused on the lesson. His eyes kept drifting to Tara, who sat 3 rows back, taking notes as always. She had been at the academy for 2 months now, and somehow the small human girl had gotten under his skin. It was not fear, had never been afraid of anything in his life, but there was something about the way she looked at him that made him want to prove himself, like she was waiting for something. The Warrior King conquered 14 systems using only traditional weapons, the professor continued, showing an image of a massive and ancient armor. His 4-armed fighting style became the foundation for all modern military training. Several students, including, sat up with pride. The ethereal battle sage could fight an entire army using only her mind and never take a single step, the professor said, showing an image of a glowing figure floating above a battlefield. The sword master Augustus held off 1,000 enemies at the Bridge of Stars for 3 days straight before falling. Each image showed beings of incredible power and skill, legends that had shaped galactic history for thousands of years. But, the professor said, and something in her voice changed, perhaps the most interesting warriors in recent galactic history come from an unexpected source. She pressed a button, and the screen showed human soldiers in their artificial armor. The Terran Marines of the Battle of Station, she said, outnumbered 300 to 1 by Nexus Alliance forces, cut off from supplies and reinforcements. Most species would have surrendered or died within hours. The image changed to show a timeline of the battle. Instead, they held their position for 47 days. They slept in shifts, ate their emergency rations 1 bite at a time, and never stopped fighting. When rescue finally arrived, the Marines were still standing. The Nexus forces had retreated after losing over half their army to an enemy they could not break. Impossible, said loudly. No species can fight for that long without proper rest. The humans did, the professor replied calmly. This is not opinion. This is recorded galactic history. Felt his 4 hands clench into fists. He had heard this story before, but always dismissed it as human propaganda. Now, hearing it from a respected professor, it made him angry. With respect, professor, said, standing up, that battle was won by human technology, not human skill. Give any species those weapons and armor and they could do the same thing. An interesting point, the professor acknowledged. What do you think makes a great warrior? Strength, he said immediately. Speed. The ability to end a fight quickly before the enemy knows what happened. The greatest warriors in history were not the ones who could last the longest. They were the ones who could finish their enemies in seconds. Murmurs of agreement came from several predator species around the room. So you believe that true warriors win through superior physical ability? The professor asked. Of course, replied. Fighting is not complicated. The stronger fighter wins. Everything else is just making excuses for being weak. That was when Tara spoke for the first time in the entire class. What about Sun? The room went quiet. Everyone turned to look at the small human girl who had just interrupted the strongest student in the academy. "I am sorry," Professor Ra said. Tara stood up slowly. "Son, ancient human military philosopher, he said that the highest skill in war is to defeat an enemy without fighting at all. He believed that intelligence, patience, and understanding your opponent were more important than physical strength." Laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Philosophy will not help you when someone is trying to tear your head off." "Will it not?" Tara asked. She looked directly at him with those calm, dark eyes. "Son, strategies helped humans survive on a world that tried to kill them every day for 2 million years. Maybe there is something to learn from that." "The only thing I need to learn about humans," said, turning to face her completely, "is how long they can last in real combat. And I think the answer is not very long at all." The challenge was hanging in the air between them now, thick as smoke. Every student in the room could feel it. "Are you challenging me to a fight?" Tara asked. Her voice was still calm, but something had changed in her eyes. "Would you accept if I was?" replied. Professor Ra warned, "This is not the place for." "Yes," Tara interrupted, "I would accept." The room exploded into whispers and excited chatter. Felt his heart start to beat faster. Finally, the mysterious human girl was going to show what she was really made of. "Then I challenge you," he said formally, all four arms spread wide. "Ancient trial by combat. No weapons, no armor, no time limits. The old law that has settled disputes between warriors for 10,000 years." Tara nodded once. "I accept your challenge." "This is highly irregular," the professor protested. "The Academy has not seen a formal combat trial in over 50 years. "But it is legal," said. "The law is still written in the Academy Charter. Any student may challenge another to trial by combat if both agree." "Standard gravity, standard atmosphere," Tara added. "Academy Gymnasium, tomorrow after classes." "Tara," Lyra whispered urgently from her seat, "you do not have to do this. He is twice your size." "I know exactly how big he is," Tara replied without looking away from. The bell rang, ending class, but nobody moved. The tension in the room was electric. "Very well," Professor Ross said with a sigh. "I will inform the Academy administration. If both students truly consent, the trial will take place tomorrow at 1800 hours in the main gymnasium." Students began filing out, talking excitedly in dozens of languages. Word of the challenge would spread through the entire academy within the hour. Walked past Tara's desk on his way out. "I hope you have said goodbye to your friends," he said quietly, "because after tomorrow you will be too embarrassed to show your face around here." Tara was packing up her notes with the same calm movement she did everything else. She said, without looking up, "What? You should probably eat a good breakfast tomorrow. You are going to need your energy." As left the classroom, he felt a strange thrill run through his entire body. Finally, he was going to prove what everyone already knew. We're the greatest warriors in the galaxy, and humans were just clever prey animals who got lucky. But as he walked down the hallway, surrounded by his friends who were already planning how they would spend their winnings from the betting pools, could not shake one small doubt. Tara had not looked nervous at all when she accepted his challenge. She had looked ready, like she had been waiting for this moment since the day she arrived. In her dorm room that night, Tara sat cross-legged on her bed, breathing slowly and steadily. Her heart rate was 42 beats per minute, the same as always. She thought about home, about the red dirt trails where she used to run 20, 30, sometimes 40 miles without stopping. About the mountains where she learned that the secret to climbing was not strength or speed, but simply never giving up. Tomorrow, she would show the galaxy something that most species had forgotten over thousands of years of advanced technology and civilization. Sometimes the old ways were still the best ways. And sometimes the hunter was not the one with the biggest teeth. The Academy Gymnasium had never held this many students before. Beings from dozens of different species filled every available space, hanging from the walls and floating near the ceiling. The air hummed with excitement and nervous energy in 100 different languages. Betting pools had been running all day. Most students gave the human girl less than 5 minutes before knocked her unconscious. The smart money was on 30 seconds or less. A few brave souls bet that she might last a full minute if she was very good at running away. Professor Ross stood at the center of the large combat area, looking uncomfortable. "This trial by combat is conducted under the ancient laws of the Academy Charter," she announced. "No weapons, no armor, no outside assistance. The trial ends when one participant cannot continue or yields defeat." Entered from the eastern door to wild cheers from his supporters. He had stripped down to basic exercise clothes that showed off his massive frame. 4 arms, each as thick as a human's leg, swung loosely at his sides. His dark blue skin looked like it was made of metal plates. Every muscle was defined and powerful. He raised all 4 arms above his head and roared a traditional war cry. The sound echoed off the gymnasium walls and made several smaller species flinch. Tara entered from the western door to scattered applause and quite a bit of worried muttering. She looked impossibly small compared to, wearing simple academy exercise clothes and moving with that same flowing calm she always had. Her brown hair was tied back in a simple ponytail. The 2 fighters walked to the center of the mat and faced each other. The size difference was shocking. Could probably have picked Tara up and thrown her across the room without much effort. "Last chance to back out, human," said loud enough for the watching crowd to hear. "I do not want to hurt you too badly in front of all your friends." Tara looked up at him. Her heart rate was 42 beats per minute. "I appreciate your concern," she said, "but I am exactly where I want to be." Professor Ross stepped back. "Combat begins, now." Exploded into motion. His people had been bred for warfare over thousands of generations. His reflexes were faster than human eyes could follow. His 4 arms moved in perfect coordination, each one capable of delivering a blow that could shatter stone. The first attack came from his upper right arm, a straight punch aimed at Tara's head. His upper left followed a split second later, targeting her ribs. His lower arm swept low, trying to knock her legs out from under her. Tara was not there when the punches arrived. She had stepped to the side, so smoothly that it looked like she had simply melted away from the attacks. His momentum carried him forward, and for just a moment he was off balance. Tara could have struck then. Most fighters would have. Instead, she stepped back and waited. The crowd erupted in excited chatter. The human had avoided its opening attack, something most students would have considered impossible. Spun around, all 4 arms ready. His eyes were bright with excitement. This was going to be more interesting than he had thought. He attacked again, this time with a complex combination that used all 4 arms in a flowing sequence. Each strike flowed into the next with deadly precision. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Tara moved like she was dancing. She ducked under one strike, leaned away from another, turned sideways to let a third punch pass inches from her face. When tried to grab her with his 4th arm, she simply was not where his hand closed. For the first 5 minutes, it looked like was in complete control. He pressed forward constantly, attacking with combinations that would have overwhelmed any other student in the academy. His speed was incredible, his power obvious, his skill undeniable. But he could not touch her. Tara never fought back. She just moved. Always calm, always controlled, always just out of reach. Sometimes she would redirect one of his attacks with a gentle touch, sending his fist or arm slightly off course. But she never struck him, never tried to hurt him. By minute 10, some of the watching students began to realize that something strange was happening, was breathing harder than he should have been. Sweat was starting to show on his dark blue skin. Tara looked exactly the same as when the fight started. "Why does she not attack?" whispered a noble. "She is just running away," replied a student. "This is not really fighting." But Professor Ra, who had studied warfare for 3 centuries, was beginning to understand. The human was not running away. She was hunting. By minute 15, Satax had lost some of their earlier precision. He was still incredibly dangerous, still faster and stronger than any human had a right to survive against. But his movements were becoming slightly more predictable, his combinations a little less complex. Tara began to respond differently. Instead of just avoiding his attacks, she started to make him work harder for each one. When he swung high, she would duck just low enough to force him to overextend. When he tried to grab her, she would move just far enough to make him reach further than was comfortable. She was making him waste energy. At minute 20, landed his first solid hit. A glancing blow to Tara's shoulder that sent her staggering back 3 steps. The crowd cheered, thinking the fight was finally about to end. Tara wiped a small trickle of blood from the corner of her mouth and smiled. It was not a nice smile. Felt a chill run down his spine. The human girl had just taken a hit that should have broken bones, and she was smiling. "Is that all?" Tara asked quietly. Roared and attacked with renewed fury. This time his strikes carried desperation along with power. He had to end this quickly. Something was wrong. His arms felt heavier than they should. His breathing was becoming labored. Tara's movements became more aggressive, not attacking, but controlling. She began to dictate where the fight went, leading around the mat like a dancer leads a partner. When he tried to corner her, she would slip away and force him to chase her to a different part of the fighting area. By minute 30, the gymnasium had gone almost completely quiet. What they were watching was not what anyone had expected. Was no longer the unstoppable force he had been at the beginning. His attacks were slower, less coordinated. His 4 arms, which had been his greatest advantage, now felt like they weighed 100 pounds each. Tara, meanwhile, had begun to strike back. Not with power. Humans did not have power to match her, but with precision. A quick jab to a pressure point here, a strike to a nerve cluster there. None of the hits were devastating by themselves, but they added up. They disrupted his balance, interfered with his coordination, made him think about defense when he should have been focusing on offense. At minute 40, stumbled. It was barely noticeable, just a slight loss of balance after a particularly wild combination of attacks. But Tara saw it, and so did the students who were watching closely. The greatest warrior in the academy was getting tired. Tara increased her pace, not enough to exhaust herself, but enough to keep working. She made him chase her, made him swing at targets that moved just out of reach, made him use his strength against empty air over and over again. By minute 50, was breathing hard enough that the entire gymnasium could hear him. His dark blue skin was covered in sweat, and his 4 arms trembled slightly between attacks. Tara looked like she had just finished a light warm-up exercise. "How?" gasped between attacks. "How are you still moving?" "I am just getting started," Tara replied. Her heart rate was 60 beats per minute now, still well within normal human parameters. At minute 55, fell to one knee. He got back up immediately, driven by pride and fury, and the knowledge that the entire academy was watching. But for that one moment, the strongest student in the school had been down. Tara did not press her advantage. She just waited, patient as a mountain, calm as still water. At 60 minutes, exactly 1 hour after the fight began, collapsed. His 4 arms would not obey him anymore. His legs shook with exhaustion. His breathing came in ragged gasps that echoed through the silent gymnasium. He tried to stand. His body would not respond. Tara stood over him, breathing normally, her heart rate already beginning to return to its resting 42 beats per minute. The silence in the gymnasium was complete. 1,000 students from across the galaxy stared at something they had never thought possible. The human girl had won. "Do you yield?" Tara asked quietly. Looked up at her from the floor, his 4 arms trembling with exhaustion and disbelief. For the first time in his life, the word came easily. "I yield." The gymnasium stayed silent for a long moment after yielded. 1,000 students from dozens of different species stared at the impossible scene before them. The strongest fighter in the academy lay exhausted on the mat while a small human girl stood over him, barely breathing hard. Then someone started to clap. It was Lyra, the quiet girl who had become Tara's friend. Her silver skin had turned a bright gold color that meant amazement and pride. The clapping spread slowly through the crowd as students tried to process what they had just witnessed. Tara knelt down next to and offered him her hand. "Good fight," she said simply. Stared at the offered hand for several seconds. His 4 arms were still shaking from exhaustion. His pride, which had been built over years of victories and conquests, lay in pieces around him. He pushed himself up to a sitting position without accepting her help. "How?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "You fought your fight," Tara replied. "I fought mine." Professor Ra approached them carefully. "Both students performed admirably," she announced to the crowd. "The trial by combat is concluded. Please return to your dormitories in an orderly fashion." As students began filing out, their conversations buzzed with excitement and disbelief. The story of the fight would spread through every corridor and every species before morning. His 3 friends helped him to his feet. Anon looked confused and worried, kept looking between and Tara like he was trying to solve a puzzle that made no sense. "This does not change anything," said loudly enough for several nearby students to hear. "It was just one fight, one lucky victory." But his voice lacked conviction, and everyone could hear it. Tara had already gathered her things and was walking toward the exit. She moved with that same calm confidence she always had, as if winning an impossible fight against the Academy's champion was just another normal day. "Tara," Lyra called out, running to catch up with her friend. "That was incredible. How did you do that?" "I trained," Tara said with a small smile. "My whole life I trained." Over the following days, everything changed. The video of the fight had been recorded automatically by the Academy's systems. Within hours, copies were spreading across the galactic network. Military academies, diplomatic corps, and intelligence agencies throughout known space began analyzing every second of the footage. What they saw changed their understanding of human combat doctrine forever. At the Military Institute, instructors who had dismissed human tactics as primitive were forced to reconsider. A species that could fight for hours without stopping had strategic implications that no one had fully grasped before. Warrior chiefs watched the video in stunned silence. Their greatest advantage, the ability to end fights quickly with overwhelming force, meant nothing against an enemy that could not be overwhelmed and would not be stopped. The ethereal High Council, which had ruled through superior mental abilities for thousands of years, began to wonder if they had underestimated the members of galactic civilization. But the biggest changes happened at the Academy itself. Stopped attending combat classes. He still went to his regular academic courses, but he no longer participated in any physical activities. His friends tried to encourage him, telling him it was just one loss and that he was still the strongest student in school. But knew better. The fight had not been close. Tara had not gotten lucky. She had completely controlled the battle from beginning to end, and she had made it look easy. Worse, she had been holding back. He was certain of it now. The human girl could have ended the fight at any time after the first 30 minutes. She had chosen to let it continue, to prove a point not just to him but to everyone watching. The point was simple. Human endurance was not just about lasting a long time. It was about outlasting anything that tried to fight them. Other students began to treat Tara differently as well, not with fear exactly, but with a new kind of respect. When she walked through the corridors, conversations would pause. When she entered a room, eyes would follow her. Some students tried to challenge her to other contests, hoping to find something she was not good at. A student challenged her to a memory competition and was shocked when Tara recited a 1,000-line epic poem from memory. A noble tried to match her in a test of academic knowledge and discovered that humans from Deathworld spent a lot of time learning about everything that could kill them. Even the professors began to see Tara differently. In strategy and tactics class, they started asking for her opinions on military scenarios. Her answers were often unlike anything they had learned in traditional academic settings, but they were also disturbingly effective. "On my world," Tara would say, "we learned that the best way to win a war is to make the other side too tired to keep fighting." 3 weeks after the fight, was sitting alone in the observation deck, looking out at the stars, when Tara found him. "May I sit?" she asked. He gestured to an empty chair without looking at her. They sat in silence for several minutes, watching distant suns turn slowly in the darkness. "I have been thinking about what you said," finally spoke, "about persistence hunting." "Oh, on my world when we hunt, we chase the prey until we catch it, fast, violent, over quickly." He flexed one of his 4 hands absently. "But your people, you would follow something for days, weeks." "Sometimes," Tara confirmed. "There are stories of hunters tracking wounded animals across hundreds of miles, never stopping, never giving up, until the animal finally collapsed from exhaustion." That is, struggled to find the word, terrifying. Tara looked at him with surprise. "Is it? To know that something is following you and that it will never stop, no matter how fast you run or how well you hide. That even if you get away today, it will still be coming tomorrow and the day after that and the day after that," shuddered. "Yes, that is terrifying." They sat quietly again, both lost in their own thoughts. "I was wrong about you," said eventually. "About your species. I thought you were weak because you looked soft. And now? Now I think that looking soft might be the most dangerous thing of all," he replied, "because it makes people like me underestimate you." Tara smiled. "My people have a saying, speak softly and carry a big stick." "What does that mean?" "It means that the deadliest hunters are often the quietest ones." A month later, Tara was sitting in her dorm room, writing a message to her family back on Earth. Outside her window, the stars wheeled in their ancient patterns, and somewhere among them, military strategists were quietly updating their files on human capabilities. "Dear Mom and Dad," she wrote, "Academy life is going well. I am making friends and learning a lot about galactic politics. The other students are starting to understand that Earth humans might be more useful allies than they originally thought." She paused, thinking about how to phrase the next part. "I had to demonstrate some of our physical capabilities recently. Nothing serious, just a friendly sparring match. It has opened up some interesting conversations about human military doctrine and our approach to conflict resolution." She smiled as she typed the last line. "Tell Dad that all those years of marathon training finally paid off. It turns out that the ability to keep going when everyone else stops is just as useful in space as it was on the hiking trails back home." Down the hall was also writing a message, but his was going to his father, the war chief of the Empire. "Honored Father," he wrote carefully, "I have learned something important at the Academy. The humans are not weak. They are the most dangerous opponents we could ever face, precisely because they do not look dangerous." He stopped writing and stared at the blank screen for a long time before continuing. "They do not fight like warriors. They fight like time itself, patient, relentless, inevitable. I respectfully suggest that we reconsider our assessment of their military potential." In her room, Tara finished her message and sent it across the light years to Earth. Then she changed into her exercise clothes and went for a run through the Academy's long corridors. As she jogged at an easy pace that she could maintain for hours, other students watched her pass with a mixture of respect and something that might have been fear. They were beginning to understand what it meant to come from a death world. It did not make you the biggest or the strongest or the fastest. It made you the one who never stopped coming. And in a galaxy full of civilizations that had forgotten how to struggle, how to endure, and how to persist against impossible odds, that made humans the most dangerous species of all. Tara's footsteps echoed through the corridors as she ran, steady and unchanging, like a heartbeat that would never stop. Somewhere behind her, listened to the sound and shivered. He would never underestimate persistence again.